My name is Ryan Cole. I am 26 years old. I grew up in a small town, a very small town, the kind of town where nothing exciting ever happens. Everyone knows everyone. Every day is the same. Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. I worked at a small shop near my house. I sold groceries. I was not unhappy, but I always felt something was missing. I always felt there was a bigger world out there, a world I had never seen, a world I wanted to explore. But I had one big problem. I could not speak English, not even one sentence. And in this world, English is everything. English is the key that opens every door. I knew that. I felt that every single day. But I did not know where to start. I did not know how to start. And then one morning, everything changed. This is the story of how I learned English. This is the story of my first big adventure. This is my story. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember it very clearly. I was sitting at my shop. It was quiet. No customers. I was drinking my tea and looking outside the window. And then my phone rang. I did not recognize the number. I almost did not pick up. But something told me to answer, so I did. The voice on the other side was calm and professional. He said there was a job opening at a company in New York City. A real company in New York City. He said my name had been recommended by a friend. He said the job was good, the salary was very good, and the opportunity was once in a lifetime. I sat there in silence for a few seconds. My heart was beating fast. New York City? Those three words felt like something from a movie, not from my real life. He said there was only one condition. The job interview had to be done in English. In 3 days. I said I needed some time to think. He said, okay. He gave me his number, and he hung up. I put my phone down on the table. I looked at my tea. It had gone cold. And I just sat there thinking, New York City? English? 3 days? That night, I could not sleep. I was lying in my bed and staring at the ceiling. I kept thinking about that phone call. Part of me was very excited. New York City, a real job, a new life. But another part of me was very scared. I did not speak English. I had never spoken English to a real person before, only in my head, only in my dreams. I thought about all the reasons to say no. It was too risky. I was not ready. My English was too weak. What if I failed? What if I embarrassed myself? What if I went all the way to New York and came back with nothing? I thought about all of that. And then I thought about something else. I thought about that feeling of something missing, that feeling of a bigger world waiting for me. And I made a decision. I picked up my phone. I called the number, and they said yes. Just like that. Yes. One small word, but it changed everything. The next 2 days were a blur. I had never traveled by plane before. I had never left my city alone before. I did not even have a passport 2 months ago. Luckily, I had applied for one earlier that year just in case something like this happened. And now I needed it. I started packing my bag. My big blue suitcase. I packed my best clothes. I packed my documents. I packed my passport. I packed my phone charger and my headphones. I checked everything 3 times. Passport? Check. Ticket? Check. Money? Check. Charger? Check. I was as ready as I could be. That night, my mother made my favorite food. She did not say much. She just kept looking at me with proud eyes. My father shook my hand before I went to sleep. He did not say much either, but I understood everything. The next morning, I woke up at 3:45. It was still dark outside. I took a shower, I got dressed, I picked up my suitcase, I looked around my small room one last time, and I walked out the door. I took a taxi to the airport. The drive took about 40 minutes. I sat quietly the whole time, looking outside the window. The city was still sleeping. The streets were empty. The sky was dark blue. I had my headphones on and I was listening to some English words I had saved on my phone. Simple words. Hello, thank you, excuse me, where's the gate? I kept repeating them in my head. We arrived at the airport at 4:30 in the morning. I stepped out of the taxi and looked up. The airport was enormous. I had never seen a building so big in my life. There were people everywhere, even at that hour. People with suitcases, people with laptops, people walking fast, like they knew exactly where they were going. I did not know where I was going. I stood there for a moment, just taking it all in. I took a deep breath. I picked up my suitcase, and I walked inside. Inside the airport, everything was bright and loud. There were signs everywhere, big screens showing flight times and gate numbers, shops and cafes, and long lines of people. I followed the signs that said check-in. I found the counter and stood in the line. The line moved slowly. My heart was beating fast. I kept practicing in my head. Hello, I have a flight to New York. Here is my passport. I repeated those sentences quietly to myself while I waited. Finally, it was my turn. I walked up to the counter. The agent was a woman in a blue uniform. She smiled at me. I smiled back. She asked me where I was flying to. I said, New York. My voice was a little shaky, but I said it. She asked for my passport and my ticket. I gave them to her. She looked at everything carefully. She typed something on her computer. Then she said my bag would be checked and she gave me my boarding pass. She said I was in seat 22A, a window seat. She said my flight was at 7:30 and I needed to go to gate number 7. I said, thank you. She smiled and wished me a good flight. I walked away from the counter feeling something I had not expected to feel. I felt proud. That small conversation, that short exchange in English, it worked. I understood her, she understood me, and it worked. Next was the security check. I had read about this online the night before, so I was a little prepared. There was a long line of people moving through a scanner. The security officer was a tall man with a serious face. He told everyone to remove their shoes and belts and put all their belongings in the tray. I did exactly that. I removed my shoes, I removed my belt, I put my backpack in the tray and my phone and my keys. I walked through the scanner. It beeped. My heart jumped. The officer asked me to check my pockets. I checked. I had forgotten some coins. I took them out and put them in the tray. I walked through again. This time, no beep. The officer nodded. I collected my things, I put my shoes back on, I picked up my backpack, and I kept walking. That was it. Simple. But in the moment, it felt like a big achievement. I found gate number 7 and sat down in one of the chairs near the window. From there, I could see the planes outside. Big, massive planes lined up on the runway. One of those planes was going to take me to New York City. I sat there quietly watching them. I felt a mix of so many emotions at the same time. Excitement, nervousness, disbelief. Was this really happening? Was I really sitting in this airport about to fly to New York for a job interview? A few months ago, this would have been impossible to imagine. I took out my phone and texted my mother. I said I was at the gates and everything was okay. She replied with a single message. She said, "Be brave." I smiled and put my phone back in my pocket. A few minutes later, the announcement came over the speakers. A clear, calm voice said that boarding for Flight 204 to New York City would begin in 15 minutes. Passengers were requested to have their boarding passes and passports ready. I looked at my boarding pass. Flight 204, Gate 7, Seat 22A. This was real. This was actually happening. The boarding line formed quickly. People stood up and gathered near the gate. I joined the line. My boarding pass was in my hand. I kept looking at it as the line moved forward. When it was my turn, I handed my boarding pass to the gate agent. She scanned it, it beeped, she smiled, and handed it back and said, "Enjoy your flight." I walked through the door and into the jetway. It was a long, narrow tunnel that connected the gate to the plane. With every step, I felt the weight of the moment. I was actually walking onto a plane for the first time in my life. I stepped inside the aircraft. A flight attendant in a red uniform greeted me. I told her my seat number. She pointed me in the right direction. I walked down the aisle counting the row numbers. 20, 21, 22. I found my seat. I put my backpack in the overhead compartment. I sat down, I buckled my seatbelt, and I looked out the window. The runway was right there, outside. The sky was just starting to get light. A soft orange glow was appearing on the horizon. And sitting there in that window seat, I felt something very strong inside my chest. Not fear, not nervousness, something else. Something that felt like the beginning of everything.
And that is where we stop today. Ryan is sitting on the plane. His journey is just beginning. If this episode helped you even a little bit, please give it a like. It really helps this channel grow. And if you want to follow Ryan's entire journey from beginning to end, then subscribe to the Fluency Protocol so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for watching. Keep listening, keep learning, and remember, every big journey starts with one small step. See you in the next episode.